Hi everyone, big things continue to happen in the Anglican world. The Anglican Communion responds to the recent GAFCON statement, cries of heartbreak across the Anglican world, serious sexual misconduct allegations against the Archbishop in ACNA, and King Charles and Pope Leo IV pray together. First, responses to the recent GAFCON statement about realigning the communion continue. Shortly after GAFCON put out their statement about a reordering of the Anglican Communion, the General Secretary of the Anglican Communion, the Right Reverend Anthony Pogo of Sudan, he put out a communique that was very pastoral and was inviting various Anglicans in GAFCON to maybe reconsider their approach. It urges them to maintain the bonds of fellowship and unity and to find a way to reform the Anglican Communion from within the instruments of communion and unity. This is what Bishop Pogo says. He says, at every level of the church, local, regional, and global, we cannot neglect to meet together, as it says in Hebrews 10:25, wherever possible. All Anglican churches are ordered by canon law, constitutions, and synodical structures that they provide a collaborative system of governance by bishops, other clergy, and laypersons. In this way, the houses of Anglican synods determine matters of doctrine, discipline, and order, and make decisions for the good of the whole. All Anglican churches are likewise invited to shape the instruments of communion which rightly evolve over time. Note that phrase. As those gathered seek to discern what the Spirit is saying to the churches. I urge them to send their representatives to the 19th meeting of the Anglican Consultative Council next year in Belfast, so everyone can participate in the decision making. Those who are present are the ones who shape the outcomes and resolutions of meetings. Now, I really do appreciate what Bishop Pogo is trying to do here, telling people, you've got to be in it to win it. If you want to win the mind of the communion, if you want to be a force of renewal within the communion, then you've got to be within the communion. I mean, if you want to win the game, you got to have skin in the game. The problem is from the GAFCON side is they believe that certain revisionist provinces, whether that's America or the Church of England, they believe that they are irreformable. What is more, the communion as a whole is not going to grant anyone the powers to discipline them. So they believe the current instruments of unity have effectively failed to bring discipline and to maintain orthodoxy or even biblical authority. So I really do appreciate Bishop Pogo's letter, what he's trying to say, that you've got to be in the game if you want to win the game, but I think GAFCON's view is the game is rigged. That's effectively their perspective. Second, heartbreak around the Anglican world at GAFCON's recent declaration. There are a lot of Anglican conservatives, traditional Christians in the Anglican world who are very sympathetic to GAFCON but are very concerned and confused by the statements made in the recent declaration. A lot of provinces around the world have a minority of conservatives, a minority of people who try to promote the apostolic and orthodox Christian tradition within Anglicanism, and they see themselves as staying in the long term to try win over their diocese or their province. And they feel like they've been kind of ostracized by the current GAFCON declaration. It's either come with us or burn with all the revisionists, which is a pretty hard line to take, and you might say not particularly pastoral in its application to others who live and worship and pray in a part of dioceses which are not in communion or not part of the GAFCON-approved statements of faith. And one such statement was put out by Matthew Olver of the Living Church Foundation, and he writes an open letter. He says, "You have broken my heart, a letter to my siblings in GAFCON." And he shares at one level his sympathy with the theological tenets of the GAFCON movement, but he also seems to feel very wounded, very concerned by GAFCON's declaration. And he argues that it's being needlessly divisive, and you're not even sure where the divide stands. I mean, this is what he asks. He asks this. He says, "Are you saying that there is ruptured communion with every Anglican province that is not part of GAFCON? Or is your claim more limited, namely an impaired communion with those who advocate the revisionist agenda?" I think that's indeed the case. The GAFCON statement makes it sound like unless you join GAFCON, you're not Anglican and you're not in communion with us at all. And so, the Reverend Oliver asks, "Are you in full communion with those who have stood publicly, like communion partners in the Episcopal Church and communion partners in Canada, the Alliance in the Church of England, the Anglican Communion of St. Mark in New Zealand? Part of the very reason for their existence is to stand with the Anglican Communion in their witness to historic faith. The scriptures are clear. Christians cannot be out of communion with each other. Christ the Lord founded one church and one church only. Those who have put on Christ and are in Christ are also united in him to each other. Full stop. There can, of course, be wounded communion, degrees of communion, and impairments to full communion. These impediments have wrought great violence upon the communion shared by Anglicans. But the solution is to never unchurch each other, to seek more distance, greater enmity, and further division." Now, I'll put the link in at the bottom. You can read it yourself. It really is quite a moving statement. And I appreciate where he's coming from, because it's like many Anglicans are being told, pick your side and burn your bridges. And even while they may be more closely aligned with GAFCON, they're not quite ready or willing simply to burn the bridges with their own Anglican diocese, other churches, or their own province. This sort of all or nothing approach of GAFCON is very problematic for a lot of people. Third, the most senior bishop in ACNA, the Anglican Communion North America, Archbishop Stephen Wood, has been accused by a former children's ministry director of putting his hand against the back of her head and trying to kiss her in his office in an incident alleged to have taken place in April of 2024. This incident took place only 2 months before Woods was elected to the head of the Anglican Communion of North America. Now, this is one of several scandals that has been rocking ACNA about bullying, sexual abuse, sexual harassment. If you go to the Washington Post, in the article I'll put in the links, you can read first-hand testimony of the allegation made against Archbishop Wood. This is a serious allegation. One imagines he will have to step down as he is investigated. A lot of criticism has been made against the incoming Archbishop of Canterbury, Bishop Sarah Mullally, for her lack of attention and the measures that she's put in place or failed to put in place in the Church of England. But it goes to show that safeguarding concerns when it comes to protecting children, women, various people from sexual harassment within the church is still sadly an issue in the Anglican world. And we certainly hope that we can deal with that. Otherwise, the results will be catastrophic for the witness of global Anglicanism. Fourth and finally, on something of a good note, King Charles, the Supreme Governor of the Church of England, met with Pope Leo XIV, the alleged Vicar of Christ in the Roman Catholic Church, and they met and prayed together in the Sistine Chapel. And this is the first time in 5 centuries, in 500 years, that an English monarch and a pope have met together for prayer and to share in fellowship. Now, I know some people will be very angry at this. What was the Reformation for? I mean, remember what Ridley and Latimer and all those good Anglican Reformed chaps were fighting for. I understand. I still believe in the Reformation. But it is a great move towards unity. It is a great example of Christian affection and communion when you have the monarch, the King of England, and the Pope meeting together. That gives me hope that despite all the divisions and discord in the world, maybe there are measures, maybe there are ways of bringing churches together. Well, that's Anglican news this week. No doubt more will be happening in the coming weeks as well, particularly as the fallout, the aftermath of the GAFCON statement begins to take root and its effects are felt in a more tangible and empirical way. Until then, the peace of the Lord be with you all.